What interested you originally in psychiatry, out of curiosity?
I've always been interested in like experience, like how we experience the world, and that happens through our minds. And so I've always been interested in the human mind. Plus, there's mental illness in my family. I've suffered from depression, anxiety, and I've also seen like how relationships can be cause a lot of pain when they don't need to. And so I'm excited about, kind of helping people not suffer so much when they don't have to.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know. Like it's like the human mind is such an interesting thing, and everybody's going through like their own thing. So, and you really like it's so true. I know it's probably a little cliche, but you really don't know what anybody is going through at any given moment.
No. Yeah. So I did one Hyrox in Chicago, January 2020 maybe. And that was my first Hyrox, and I was like, oh my gosh, I skipped one lap. So I had a 5-minute time penalty, and yeah, so I didn't do well, but I would have done fine had I not skipped a lap. But I loved it afterwards. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do this instead of OCR. And that was kind of my plan moving into COVID. I was toying with sort of signing with them, what to do. And then COVID happened. And so all that got put on hold. So then, this was my first one back. So my second event, my first time doing it without messing up counting, etc. And so I think after COVID, I was during COVID, I was like, okay, it's time to go to residency. This athlete thing isn't for me. What I didn't really acknowledge at the time is that it probably wasn't for me because it wasn't happening. And I like to be busy. So after this most recent Hyrox event, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to be able to stop this? I love this so much. So I'm at least going to do or try to do Hyrox US championships in Chicago at the end of June.
Okay.
It actually is happening on the second day of residency. So I have orientation the week before, which I have to be at, and then residency starts the day before. So I'm going to see if I can get somebody to cover for me on my first shift or whatever. So we'll see.
But if you need one of us, it's not going to be a good cover, but we'll totally cover for you.
Probably be just as good as I'm going to do in my first day of residency.
You have a good point, because Hyrox, DECA, those kind of things, not that they're easier to train for, at least they're not necessarily easier to be good at, but they are easier to train for, where
it's easier to prepare for.
Yeah, that's probably the better explanation, because this is why you have an MD, because you can explain things better than we can. But it's just something where what it's going to be every time, where a Spartan race, there's so many variables to it, and I love running Spartan races. And I did a DECA strong, which is basically the DECA fit without the running part. And I'm I do need some running, I think. You know what I mean? I'm not
totally.
But your heart rate is just, how do you train to have your heart rate's at max, the entire time? How do you train for that? Different from OCR.
I do a lot of combination workouts. My coach, Kim Nadeau, designs these workouts where I run and do strength exercises. I guess it's kind of CrossFit sort of. So you practice running fatigued or compromised, I think is what they call it. Because it's one thing to run when you're tired from running. It's another thing to run when you're your legs are blown out from lifting or something.
Right.
And that's a very relevant strength to have for DECA or Hyrox or something. So I do that. I actually have a lot of trouble. My heart rate never gets into the anaerobic zone. I probably just have a lower max heart rate than I think, but it seems like I can only really achieve a heart rate that I can maintain for a while. So it's really hard for me to max out. I probably need to be working something different, but I've been spending time at altitude lately, and it can be harder to get your heart rate up for that. But basically I just do zone 2 plus threshold work. And I haven't gotten above threshold in 4 years or something.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not what I recommend, but that's just a quirk that I've noticed in myself.
Yeah. So when you were doing Hyrox, what did you find super, was there something that was super challenging for you?
I think the ones where it really behooves you to have more mass, like sled pull, for example, not only is my pull strength slightly weaker than it should be, but also when you have less weight to like pull on it, it like really affects you. So my sled pull was significantly slower than like the fastest woman. It was like 2.5 minutes I lost on the sled pull. On the sled push, I lost like 1.5 minutes or something.
Okay.
So basically the things that require explosive strength and also that are helped by having more mass. So I really need to work on like my max strength, basically. Yeah, the running was great. I don't want to ruin that. So it's hard because you have to like think about how to keep your strengths while working on your weaknesses. Because it's easy, you know, I could just, if I just focused on strength right now, maybe I could get a lot stronger, but it might be at the cost of running. So it's always this kind of balancing act. Running is always going to be relaxing in a thing like Hyrox because you're never, for me, for somebody who like running is their thing, because like my brain knows running. My brain knows how to dig with running. It knows how to just run no matter what at like a certain tempo with good like form. So I knew that as long as I maintained form, I would be able to run like faster than the other people. And so that's all. I like didn't have to worry about it, and that was nice. So it's nice. Like, okay, I finished the station. Now I can relax. This still sucks because like I'm really tired and I don't want to run right now, but I can do it. It's fine. And that was nice. It was a relief.
Like mentally use it as your like break. That's nice.
Exactly. Like just shut off completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of the flip, at least for my side of things and probably some other people, like it's like the flip for OCR. For OCR, when I get to an obstacle, I'm like, oh, cool, a break from running. But like, I think I would be the same way with like Hyrox and Deca, where the running, you can kind of like let your heart rate recover a little bit because some of those exercises you are like, it's not easy. You know, you can't just get into a groove, right? You have to like legit push yourself.
Totally. You have to focus and really push yourself if you're somebody, if it's not your main thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even like doing the Deca Strong, like when I hit the assault bike, I probably lost a lot of time on the assault bike because I was just kind of trying to like catch my breath and there was no running there to do that. You know what I mean? And it was rough.
Oh, sounds awful. Assault bike is killer. So $1 Million Mile came out afterwards. But we filmed it before. Yeah. So it was before $1 Million Mile was.
Gotcha.
Shown. Yeah.
Okay.
They wanted us to be like super bold and cocky. And I would have done it more, but at the time I was applying to residency. I didn't end up applying that year, but I started to apply to residency thinking I was going to go into emergency medicine. So I was like, oh my God, like what if the people who are interviewing me see this? Like I have to be nice. And so I kind of toned it down, which is why I seemed nicer maybe.
Yeah, no, we could totally tell.
But like I would have embraced it more had that not been happening. I would have been more like the other people. But yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's gotta be a little fun to that, right? To be like, yeah, I can be a dick, I guess.
Yeah.
Totally. It's fun to like embrace this like, you know, alter ego, competitor ego.
Yeah.
Like what you feel at the start line. Yeah. I mean, like when I ran West Virginia in 2018, I had never run that far before. Like I'd never run, like even just in a run, I'd never run that long. Like the farthest I'd ever run was like 10 miles or something. So that was like a new, you know, unexplored territory for me. But mentally it's easier when you haven't run something because A, your expectations are low, and also B, when it's longer, you can just run slower. And so that's like what I comfort myself with. Especially like once you have that distance dialed in and you know exactly how hard you can push for the whole time to max out, then it's no longer relaxing because you know that it's not gonna be relaxing. But before you figured it out, like you're probably not gonna run the fastest you can possibly run that distance because you've never done it before. And so it's gonna be easier than running a shorter distance. So
yeah, I mean, we've said the same, kind of along the same lines where like we've run a 5K and we've run a half and we're like, they both suck, but for very different reasons. You know what I mean?
Totally. You have to focus.
Yeah.
A 5K, you're like, you feel like you're going to die the whole time. And a half, you're like,
fine for a while.
Relax a little bit.
Right. You can like get into that pace. You know what I mean? Pace
totally. Totally. Yeah. It's also, it's like the difference between the triple jump or like powerlifting and running or something. Like you have to focus, like in with a max lift, you have to like focus everything you have in like one moment. And like, that's so hard. It's so scary too. Whereas like with running, it's like, like even if it's like 400 meters, you have a whole minute to focus, you know, like you have it's spread out. So it's a different thing. And I don't think one is harder than the other. They're just different.
They are different.